Okay.
So it shows that it's slowly streaming. All right, we are good.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for attending. We are having a presentation today from some city representatives, and I'm going to ask that they introduce themselves so we know who they are, and they're going to speak to the affordable housing update. I think everybody got a link to the information from council in regards to the second suites and their implementation. And maybe Anne and Shelby can let us know if that has actually gone through council and is now approved, and go over a little bit about how that's going to impact housing in Barrie. So Anna, maybe I'll ask you to start and you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So hi, everybody. I'm Anna Sajecki. I'm the Supervisor of Growth Management with the City of Barrie. It's great to be here, and we're really happy to have this opportunity to speak about affordable housing. So Donna, as you mentioned, we are working on some zoning bylaw amendments related to affordable housing to just in part make it easier to build affordable housing, but also to sort of clarify the process a little bit too. So we're all on the same page in terms of what gets built. So what happened was we held a public meeting on June 15th. And we're currently in the process of, we've heard from a lot of people, from residents, from the building community about their thoughts on the amendments. And so we've been doing some follow-up consultation and just really working to make sure that what we propose in the fall are going to be the right amendments. So you'll see it coming to City Council, I believe, on September 21st. So we're happy to talk about that process a little bit and what we presented at the public meeting. But we also thought it would be a good opportunity today to update you more broadly on what's happening in terms of affordable housing at the City of Barrie. So we can talk about some of the several different initiatives going on. And we're also here and happy to just really take any questions that you have too. So Shelby White is really our affordable housing expert at the City of Barrie. So I want to let her introduce herself, and she'll take it over in terms of talking about what's going on.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shelby White. I am a planner here with Development Services at the City of Barrie. As Anna mentioned, within my portfolio is the city's affordable housing policy portfolio. So I really am working on a number of different initiatives. We thought that today we would love to use your time to however you would like, but to sort of begin and kind of give us a place of to start the conversation. I thought I'd put together a very quick presentation on just some of the different things that are going on right now in the city based on the most recent updates we did, and then happy to answer any of your questions or spend more time talking about any one particular item. I will attempt to share my screen now and see how this works. Let's see. Let's see. Did that work?
Yep.
Okay. Let's give this a whirl. We don't use Zoom nearly as often as we use Microsoft Teams, so forgive me in advance if I have any technical difficulties. But thanks, everyone. We're really excited to be here with you this morning to give you an update on some of the affordable housing initiatives currently going on and planned at the city. Let's see. There we go. So just to kind of start with some context, affordable housing and getting more built in Barrie is a council strategic priority right now. There are some key challenges that have really emerged in the last year or so. Homeownership is becoming increasingly difficult for Barrie residents. There also continues to be a lack of purpose-built rentals. So most renters in Barrie are not living in purpose-built rental units. They're living in what we would refer to as the secondary rental market. So those are renting out private homes or condominium units, that sort of thing, as opposed to purpose-built units. So about 75% of renters are in those. And because of that, we're seeing some repercussions as well, and the spillover from the current sort of sellers market and the cost of home ownership is having an impact on increasing the rental costs as well. And then more broadly speaking, and without getting too technical, but I'm happy to answer questions if they come up, there is the way that we, sort of define affordable housing within the city. We really lean on the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation's surveys, rental market surveys, and they've been focusing in Barrie on that primary rental market. So they don't actually survey a lot of those second suites and secondary rental units that tend to be more expensive. So when we see what is affordable based on market rate, that's why oftentimes it'll seem a little bit low compared to what you're hearing in the news, because the units that are included in the surveys that they do don't include the vast majority of units within the city. So there's some challenges there. In general, affordable housing is something that's a shared responsibility in the city. So the County of Simcoe is actually our designated affordable housing service manager under the Housing Services Act. However, we work very closely with them. So the County of Simcoe is responsible for social housing units, your rent geared to income, subsidized housing, all of that is done through the county. And in 2014, they approved their 10-year affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy. And it outlined several ways that Barrie could approach the housing affordability issue. Based on this, the city of Barrie undertook our own work, and we put together our own affordable housing strategy focused on the needs of the city specifically. So that strategy was created in 2015, and it set a target of 840 new affordable housing units in the city by 2024. This strategy was really aimed at trying to prevent the affordability gap from getting any wider in the city. And through this strategy, we've achieved a number of things so far. We've made it easier to build second suites and provide other forms of affordable housing through some updates to the zoning bylaw. We've adapted the city's community improvement plan to include an affordable housing development grant. With partnerships, we've supported applications to Cmhc's Rapid Housing Initiative and other funding. And we've helped several purpose-built rental projects with the development approvals process. We just did a update to council in March of this year, reporting on the strategy and how we're doing towards that target. So we've actually built since we started tracking, we've built 872 new affordable units in the city, including 409 unfunded second suites. Those second suites are basically ones that we assume, based on the county's discount rate, how many we can count as affordable. So when we first started tracking, it was assumed that 90% of all second suites that were being built in the city were affordable. Over time, the county has monitored this, and there's been a trend where the affordability of these, they're getting more expensive. So in turn, we count fewer and fewer of them each year in our assumed number of new affordable units. Most recently in 2020, only 25% of new second suites were actually counted. So the number that you're seeing here, this 872, includes all second suites and as they were counted in the year that they were tracked. So we have, based on that, staff have adjusted this number using the new assumptions to kind of try to capture how many we think may have been lost since we started. And based on that, we actually think that the number of new units in the city is much closer to 619 new units. So we do have a lot of work to do. These units are counted once they're occupied and ready to be lived in. And so we do have a number that are coming down the pipe. Last year in 2020, we actually awarded $1.77 million in affordable housing grants under the Community Improvement Plan. And those are going towards future purpose-built affordable housing and purpose-built rental projects in the city. So we'll see those counted in future years. The report that we put forward in March did give a recap on some of the actions that are underway, and we recommended that we continue to do these things. So one of those things that we committed to doing was continuing to maintain a key contact in development services who is focused on affordable housing. That is me, yours truly. So I've been able to be a point of contact for people who want to know more about the approvals process, help walk them through that, put them in contact with other organizations or other departments if they're running into any issues or pinch points, that sort of thing. We've also largely, I've helped to coordinate providing support to those who are applying for some of the Rapid Housing Initiative funding that was done as part of the pandemic response, as well as other funding for affordable housing projects. A lot of these applicants are working under really tight timelines, so we've been able to try to help them get the information they need to support those applications. We have continued to update affordable housing statistics and keep track of what's being built and coming down the pipe. Continuing to process applications for the Community Improvement Plan affordable housing grants. We've been providing support to the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force, and we've been working towards revising and updating the policies and strategies in the new official plan that we'll be bringing forward soon. We also recommended a few new action items to Council. One was to prepare a report card on affordable housing in consultation with members of Council, the County of Simcoe, and the local social housing providers. So that's something that we have set aside for Q3 and Q2 of this year. Same time frame we have in mind for reviewing and updating the affordable housing report terms of reference, which is the report that developers need to submit to us with their planning applications to show us how they're providing affordable housing in the city. We have held already a public meeting for some proposed updates to our zoning bylaw, as Anna mentioned. That took place on June 15th, and we've been doing some follow-up work since then with a plan to bring that report back to Council at the end of September. We're going to be developing a policy and mechanism for collecting cash contributions in lieu of affordable housing units. And then we've been waiving fees for planning applications and building permit fees and other associated fees with that for qualifying affordable housing projects. So the Affordable Housing Task Force is exploring some of the most effective ways to get more affordable housing built in Barrie. It's headed by Mayor Jeff Lehman and Councillor Anne-Marie Kungel as well, and has representation from a number of different organizations and levels of government, as you can see on this list. Right now they meet monthly. They have two priority action items right now. One is land availability, and the second is putting together a reserve fund to help to support affordable housing projects. And we're expecting that they will be reporting on their findings and next steps in December of this year. The new draft official plan is something we're really looking forward to as a tool to try to pave the way for the long term and more affordable housing in the city. Our current official plan has a target of 10% of all new affordable housing units across the city per year to be affordable. The new draft official plan is far more robust in when it comes to the policies that are in there. We're proposing policies that will continue to support this target, but will also more comprehensively encourage and guide affordable housing, including planning for and supporting attainable and affordable housing that meets the diverse needs of residents, making it easier for ground-related housing to support 2 residential units or that detached accessory dwelling unit in the rear yard, and encouraging a range and mix of housing options and densities through a bunch of different methods. The zoning bylaw amendments we have put forward are intended to try to remove some of the barriers to affordable housing and ensure that affordable housing units can fit within the neighborhood's existing fabric. We kind of have grouped them into these 6 key themes. The first one is to eliminate the minimum dwelling unit size requirements from the zoning bylaw across the board. The second is to update some definitions to improve the clarity of what some of these different types of uses are. So what a second suite is, what a detached accessory dwelling unit is, what the height of a building is, those sorts of things, and to try to make them a bit more consistent with the building code so it's easier for people to move through the process. We've proposed some changes to the non-conforming uses provisions to try to make it easier to add units into buildings that may not meet today's standards for setbacks, that sort of thing. some updated standards for second suites, some new standards for the detached accessory dwelling units, which you'll also hear referred to as coach houses or garden suites. And then the sixth one is to look at ways to allow for more residential uses in institutional zones. And this was really born out of the interest from a number of different churches who have some extra land that they would really like to build some purpose affordable housing, some seniors affordable housing, that sort of thing, but they're having issues with being able to do so because of the current zoning in place. The cash contributions in lieu that I mentioned is something that we are looking at to try to give some flexibility on how developers could make affordable housing contributions to the city. The funds generated from this could contribute to our CIP to purchase units, or to a dedicated reserve to provide rent supplements or other grants for affordable housing. So we haven't established what the process and mechanism would be, but we're looking at whether there's ways to tie this process to the conditions of the draft plan approval or site plan process, the potential use of something called holding provisions, which is a type of zoning, and aligning it with Section 37 of the Planning Act, which is a density bonusing section. The waiving of applicable fees has been something we've been really excited to be able to do. And so council's authorized us to waive planning application fees and building fees upfront for affordable housing projects as of January 1st of this year. And it includes any associated sort of administrative fees, so things like zoning compliance letters, that sort of thing. Previously, they could apply for this money back through the CIP, but this has allowed them to do it up front. And the development charges are not waived through this. They still need to go through the CIP process. But we've had, this has been something that's been very well received, and we've found it's been particularly helpful for those who are early on in the process and want to go through and take advantage of our formal pre-consultation process that we have without having to pay the fees for those. And they've been able to get some really great feedback from development services and other departments as they work through the early stages of planning. And really, that's sort of a recap. We'd welcome any questions. My contact information is up here. Should you have any questions or ideas, or you want to get in touch with me at all, you can reach out to me by phone or by email. But at that point, I will stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do that. And then I would welcome any questions, or if there's anything that we would like to spend some more time chatting about.
I have one question. You're establishing affordable housing units. How do you gauge the need in order to develop the amount? So there has to be a process to evaluate what drives affordable housing requirements in the city. And we know that population from Toronto is moving to Barrie, so they usually have a higher income. So what drives the demand when you keep putting units in and the demand keeps going up? So how do you get that figure? That's my question, because you seem like you never can reach the point where you've satisfied all the need, right?
So are you asking, Donna, when it comes to sort of setting that target and how many units we need?
Right. And then how do you predict the growth of the need, because you're always got a moving target.
For sure, that's a great question. So the City of Barrie's target is based off of the housing needs, what's called a housing needs assessment that the County of Simcoe did. And when they did that, they actually took a look at a few different scenarios, and they landed on the 840 units, which was really a middle ground target that was meant to try to reduce the gap between need, but wouldn't actually solve affordable housing from a supply management. In order to do that, there was, I want to say it was closer to 1,400 units that they figured would have been needed at that time. So this was sort of a middle of the road approach that was done at that point in time. And then based on the work that they did, the county did, the city created their affordable housing strategy to try to target those specific units that were needed. it is on it. We know that things have changed a lot since 2014, and we're actually really looking forward to seeing the data that's going to come out of the 2021 census. So once we have some new and updated and that robust data from Stats Canada, we're going to take a look at our strategy to see whether or not we need to make any updates outside of the county's process. But really, this strategy was by and large based on the County of Simcoe's housing needs assessment, and they do a large range of work looking at demographics and the real estate and a bunch of different factors when they drew that, when they came upon that number. But it really was a middle of the road number. It wasn't the number that would need to be met to make it so that supply was no longer the reason why people were struggling to find an affordable place.
Okay.
And what I might add too is just because you had a question about in the future, as the city continues to grow, how do we continue to track those numbers and figure out what's appropriate? And I would say that part of the process is just, we have a number of data sources. So the Statistics Canada would be one of them, looking at what is the current average rate of rentals in Barrie, tracking that. And then through the official plan process, I would say too that we've been given by the province an estimation of how the city may grow over the next 30 years. And so in terms of our affordable housing policies, we're trying to align it with that growth too. And so we're putting in extra measures. I think the key thing on our plate is knowing that we don't have enough right now, nearly enough right now, and that we really need to expand the amount that we have. And so having some fairly robust policies to help with that. So for instance, in areas like the Urban Growth Center, which is essentially our downtown, looking into how we can set a target of 20% of all units in the downtown being affordable. So our baseline is knowing that we don't nearly have enough. The city is going to continue to grow, and we really need to make progress.
And to that point too, we do I mentioned it during the presentation, but we do annual monitoring and reporting to council. So we do track and see what the current rental rate is, how many new units we've added, and whether or not there is how many units we're adding, what that rental rate is, and then in comparison to what people in the city of Barrie are earning, and how far apart is the affordability when you measure it based on people's income or based on the supply and the average rental rate. So the way that we define affordable housing is really based on the lesser of average market rent or 30% of people's income in that middle to lower income bracket. So typically in Barrie, for the last couple of years, when it comes to rent, it's technically being based on we've always sort of been tracking it based on the average market rent because we've had trouble getting that demographic information in a reliable way. So we are well aware, though, like Anna said, frankly, that the long and the short of it is there's not enough units, and it will always be a challenge, I think, to continue to provide, especially when you start to take into account the wild changes that we've seen in the market and some of the migration into our city over the last year in particular.
Right. Okay. Gwen, you had a question?
Yes, you mentioned CMHC calculation of affordable rental rates. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So CMHC, so the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, their definition so sorry, I'll just take a step back. So the way that they track rental rates in the city, CMHC data surveys the primary rental market in the city of Barrie. So those are purpose-built rental units in buildings that have 3 or more rental units. So they release that data. They do the rental market survey in October each year, and then they release the data usually by late January. So the most recent data that we have for the city of Barrie, the average market rent in October of 2020 for a one-bedroom unit was $1,190 per month. A 2-bedroom was $1,397, and a 3-bedroom was $1,646. So those would be the average market rent based on CMHC. So anything that falls at or below that would be considered "quote unquote" affordable across the board in the city of Barrie. also the way of calculating affordable rent based on an individual and what is affordable to them, and that's based on 30% of their income. So for the median income, so middle of the road in the city of Barrie, we've adjusted that based on the most recent census data, and that average median income is around $84,386 is the household income. So for a household making that amount, their affordable rent would be around $2,100 a month. So when you do it that way, it does tend to err on the side of the rental market data. Having said that, we know that rent has gone up significantly since October 2020, and we know that the units that are being counted don't include a lot of the ground-oriented, and when I say ground-oriented, I mean your single detached houses, some of your semi-detached houses, units and second suites, the garden suite units. Those are not surveyed and captured in this CMHC survey, but you do see those reported when you see the news reports from things like Zoocasa and that kind of thing, where they're saying that Barrie is now more expensive than the city of Toronto. So they do that more frequently, but they don't have the same sort of data controls that CMHC does.
Thank you.
Does student housing fall into that? Like when you estimate that, because students go out to work to go to school. So do they fit into that category too?
So my understanding would be that the dormitories would not be counted and included in this as far as those rental rates would go, but students that are renting in the primary rental market, so if they're renting in an apartment building or outward, then they are captured in that as well, yes. But the actual student specific housing that's like dormitories that are operated by Georgian College wouldn't be included, but some of those that are privately provided as purpose-built rental and just geared towards students could be.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question, Gwen?
Do you have any statistics on waiting lists for affordable housing?
So the County of Simcoe maintains their centralized wait list. I don't have it up at the moment, but I can provide you with a link to it if you'd like to see the most recent data. So the County of Simcoe is, the County of Simcoe is the one who monitors that. And there was, it is included in the most recent affordable housing monitoring report to council, although I think I've received a little bit more recent data from them. So I'm happy to provide that so that you can include it with your minutes, but and circulate it to this committee. But they do keep track of how many people are on the centralized wait list, and they keep a little bit of demographic information about it as well. So based on whether those are people who are currently living in the city and want to stay in the city, and they're on that wait list, by age, by family composition, so how many people are on that list as well. And the one thing about the county, I will send it along, but the one thing that's that the county has pointed out to me is that they have their centralized wait list that's countywide, and then they have one based on each municipality. And the numbers don't necessarily add up to the total county wait list, because you can be on multiple wait lists. So you could put yourself on the wait list for Orillia, Barrie, and Collingwood, for example. So that's why when you look at the individual ones, they might be a little bit different. And once they get assigned to one, they get taken off the wait list for all of them. So the numbers are a little bit funky when you look at it that way, but I can definitely provide that information for you.
I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem.
It's Lucia. One of your earlier slides had a note around the unoccupied units or homes. I'm not sure what that was. Were not counted in that figure. Could you just tell us a little bit more about the unoccupied residences that are out there?
Sure. So the slide that I think you're speaking to is that we count units when they're occupied. So basically what that meant was that we don't count a unit as affordable until it's actually available for somebody to live in. So typically that means that if it's a brand new unit, it's gone through the occupancy inspection from the building department, or if it's a conversion. So for example, the County of Simcoe did the Lucy's Place project, and it was a conversion of a motel. So they didn't technically go through an occupancy inspection, it's been explained to me, but once they were move-in ready, that's the point at which we count them. So we want to make sure that what we're capturing are actual units that are out there available in the rental market. The unoccupied units would be those that are under construction right now, that are coming down the pipe, that have been approved, and there's been commitments made in developments, for example, to provide a certain number of units. So we know that we can anticipate that they'll be coming onto the market in the next few years, but we won't actually count them and report on them until we don't count our chickens until they've hatched, so to speak. So that's really the best way, I think, to kind of analogy for what those unoccupied units are.
And does the city have any figure on actually unoccupied houses or other units that there might be some way to tap into?
So we don't have any specific data that we've put together on like a vacant homes, if that's sort of what you're speaking to. It's something that has been raised, I think, before. We've never really been directed to specifically look into how many vacant units we may have. Overall, the vacancy rate is reported annually by CMHC as part of their rental market rate, and a healthy vacancy rate is around 3%. It means it's sort of a balanced market where someone who's renting can typically find a unit. There's not a huge surplus. Anything lower than that, it means it's a very, very tight rental market, and it can be challenging to find something. So we'll get the CMHC vacancy rate for rental units for 2021. They'll do that survey in October and report it in January again. But as far as vacant homes beyond the primary rental market is not something that we have really been have surveyed or have spent any staff resources on looking into specifically.
I think I was just wondering if there might be some benefit to doing that, and if any other municipalities have set any precedents around that.
So it's something, I mean, again, if we were directed to do so, we could try to look into. There's some challenges, of course, with trying to figure out exactly what is vacant and how many units are vacant. The City of Toronto recently passed a vacant homes tax. They have a large number. They've kind of attacked it from a bunch of different angles, because they know that they have a very large number of short-term rentals within the City of Toronto. So it was sort of part of their approach to try to, I think, convert some of those back into longer-term rental units. So they are in the process right now. They've approved it. I believe it's January 1st, 2022, when they're going to start to enforce that. So they're currently trying to figure out how to track this and how to figure out how many are vacant and how they will actually go about doing it. So they kind of indicated their intent in doing it without first sort of figuring out how they were going to do it. So I think we'll definitely look to the City of Toronto to see what sort of mechanisms they've done. It's on our radar to sort of see how they're doing that. And then depending on how successful that is there and what their sort of ease is of surveying and understanding that, we could see whether or not it's something that we could take a look at in the City of Barrie.
Anna Marie, did you have a question?
Maybe a question and a comment, Donna. So building on, I think, Shelby's most recent comment, I'll just remind the committee that we feed up into City Building, which does meet in September. So before we close off this agenda item, perhaps we can pause and have a conversation about if there's a recommendation forward for the City of Barrie to explore the ability to gather data. And I guess then my comment would be, in addition to what you shared, Shelby, on the vacant homes content and then the tax that City of Toronto is going through, I think within the last year, City of Toronto also reported on the lens of number of individuals that were overhoused. And I'm not sure if we have that data or if that's something that comes out of CMHC. But for instance, they reported a certain percentage of the housing market was occupied by single older individuals. And I think then started a conversation around a strategy around how to connect seniors, as an example, to individuals that were seeking housing. I think we're seeing some of that very innovative approach with what Georgian College was doing with pairing up students. I know that the last presentation that came to us by Georgian College talked about a pause around that programming because they were still sorting out, I think, some logistics around that relationship contract between how we pair students with individuals. it'd be great to kind of find out where they're at with that. Perhaps we can ask about that through city building, or come back through here. But I was wondering about if Shelby and Anna, there was a framing that you might have any feedback on, if our committee looks at asking council to kind of frame an addition of the way in which we're gathering data or looking at data, that you would recommend that would be valuable to giving, I think, insight into what we're seeing around, be it vacancy or what might be perceived to be overhoused individuals.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kungal. And well, Shelby, you can go ahead first if you want.
Are you sure? I feel like I've been speaking a lot, so I'm happy to hear your voice, Anna, if you want to chime in. All I was gonna say on that is that we did just, Stats Canada did just do the 2021 census, and that is something that they report on, and they're by far the most robust, reliable data that's out there. So I do think that we will be in a really great opportunity that we have this interest in some more data finding and data sourcing, and an interest in updating our affordable housing monitoring report, and being able to do so at a time when we have really new relevant data. That's always the biggest challenge, and there's no way that staff could replicate in any way with any level of confidence what Stats Canada is doing. So they will report on how many people are living in households, that sort of thing, right? We'll have a good idea. They break it down as low as like postal codes and street levels. So if there is an interest in having staff take a closer look at that, and I would say that waiting until that data is available and basing it off of sort of the best data available, because really you're only as good as the information that you have. So I think the timing of things and aligning it with when that data is there would probably be the best use of staff resources, so that we're not spending the time trying to collect information in a way that we're not as well equipped as the federal government is to do so, but really being able to instead spend our time looking at that information and unpacking it a bit for the city and seeing which what we might want to do once we sort of know. And personally, the thing that I'm most interested in seeing that we reported on the last census, and I hope they're reporting again, is they do specifically report on how many people are in unaffordable housing situations. In the 2016 one, it was about half of renters were spending more than 30% of their income. So it'll be interesting to see whether the number stays the same, improves, or has gotten any worse. So I'm hopeful they haven't cut that out of their data source, as they do change numbers a little bit. Anna?
Yeah, no, and to add to that, absolutely, I think there's an opportunity to integrate that data with the data monitoring we'll be doing. And, you know, aging in place is definitely something that I know is a really important option for a lot of seniors. And there absolutely are trends where we have in Barrie, but you know, across Ontario, across Canada, single family homes that are really occupied by 1-2 people tops at this point, and there's extra space there. So the idea of having a program where that encourages pairing up of perhaps seniors with younger individuals, perhaps going to Georgian College, who might be able to help with some of the home maintenance, but at the same time, maybe they have a place to stay too. It's a great idea in terms of an initiative. So I just wanted to add to that.
Shared living and co-housing, you'll see shared living accommodations, co-housing, or even the far less sexy term of boarding, lodging, rooming houses, really where you have people who are renting rooms and cohabitating in that way, is definitely something that there seems to be a renewed interest in, because it is the most affordable way to rent based on units. I know we've seen some interesting transition of some of the boarding, lodging, rooming houses to specifically geared for seniors, which is kind of cool that has taken place in the city. So there's that sort of opportunity as well. And then they're managed by property management and provide some really great opportunities for co-living in within the community and in that, you know, neighborhood context. And the County of Simcoe, again, being our social housing provider and sort of our oversight, they do have on their priority list looking at boarding, lodging, rooming, that type of housing. And I think it is something that we'll probably be taking a bit of a look at in the new zoning bylaw as well, and some potential opportunities to take a look at it there. It was kind of parked from previous previous zoning amendments.
Okay, one last comment from Anne Marie there. Did you have one last comment?
Thank you. Yeah, on that, and you might have kind of leaned into it a little bit, Shelby, but as we were talking about the work that you're doing and bringing back, and it's exciting work. I'm getting lots of questions from residents on it, and sharing out a lot of the information. But also then on the boarding, lodging, rooming. So the city of Barrie is taking different incentivized approaches, as you're well aware, right through the CIP and otherwise. And we're seeing Georgian College then really targeting seniors with students. But do you see, or are you at any time able to communicate if in some of the recommendations coming back, you would see the city of Barrie having an opportunity to take on incentivizing co-housing? So we've incentivized through grants for water pipe repairs and changes for accessory suites. We've incentivized around, streamlining the process and reducing costs up front. But is there a role potentially, or would that be seen to be more out of the mandate of the city to support incentivizing, utilizing available housing in a co-sharing arrangement?
So co-housing specifically is something that now is referenced in the draft new official plan as a type of housing form, which is new. That's not, you won't see that in the current official plan. So it is a housing direction that there is that policy, sort of larger policy framework in there. As I mentioned, the County of Simcoe has an interest in exploring it. I know through sitting on the Simcoe County Alliance to End Homelessness that co-housing and those deeply affordable housing units, I think there's definitely a clear interest and need for more deeply affordable housing. And how do you provide that? And co-housing, I think, is a well-known option for doing so. I think there's been challenges with the boarding, lodging, rooming house provisions currently in the zoning bylaw and some previous attempts to update it. It was something that staff thinks really does deserve some focused attention on that specifically, knowing too that there are a lot of that while it is a really great option for example, for seniors and co-housing in general, there's a lot of stigma associated with that built form too when it comes to both students and I'll say some of our more transient and more deeply affordable types of units. So there's been some pushback in the past around that too. The City of Toronto is currently looking at their boarding, lodging, rooming house provision. So I think it is something that other municipalities are starting to take a closer look at. And I do think too that when you do look at like I said, we will be taking a look at the affordable housing strategy we have now and sort of the composition of units. And we definitely don't have enough of those more deeply affordable units. And we also don't count units in boarding, lodging, rooming houses right now towards our strategy either. So there's definitely, when it comes to, they're a really interesting piece, and I think there's some untapped potential there for sure, if there's a political interest in looking at that.
I would add too, like we did, it is on our radar, and we thought about whether we should include this in the zoning bylaw amendments going to council in the fall, and we realized that really it needs a deeper look. We need to consider things more deeply, so it won't be as part of the recommendation in the fall. But we are, once we have the OP implemented, we're starting to work on a zoning bylaw update. So we will be relooking at what the zoning bylaws are for co-housing, and it is an issue that absolutely we're going to be revisiting and diving into more deeply.
Great. Okay. Well, your both of your presentations have been excellent. I mean, Shelby, you have given us a thorough background and information, and probably there are more questions that all of us have to ask, but I wrote down a bunch, but it would take us quite a few hours to get through a lot more information. So I'd like to suggest to the committee that, you next year that we keep you on our agenda annually to update us on what's happening with housing in Barrie, because it is a subject that takes a lot of planning and is not something that happens overnight. So, and the city seems to be going in a lot of directions which would benefit the residents at all income levels. So we thank you again. Would it be possible for you to send us your presentation so that the committees could have a copy of it?
Sure, yeah, that's not a
It was
problem.
excellent.
I can provide that, and like I said, I can also provide a link to the county's centralized wait list and the information they
Yeah.
have on that as well.
Wonderful. Thank
Thanks
you
so much for
again.
having us, and
Oh.
please feel free to reach out if we didn't get to your questions. Then you can contact me by email.
Oh, great. Very enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye. On our agenda, the next item we have is Gwen from CARP is going to talk about her new initiative that CARP has and give us a little information on it. So Gwen, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Some of you may have heard about this already. We have undertaken a senior community fund in the hopes of raising money for seniors living below the poverty line of $1,625 a month or less. It came about when we saw the national statistics of up to 19 to 20% of seniors living below the poverty line, most of them being women living alone. If they didn't have family members to assist them, I have no idea how they're surviving, especially when you think of the rent we were just talking about, et cetera, for this area. So I went to the board. I asked them to approve setting up senior community fund. They did. We set a target of $25,000. So we want to raise money to give recipients between $100 and $500 based on their need. We would not hand out cash. It would be a gift certificate, or we will write a check to whatever need they have. We just finished a 2-day auction to raise money. I think maybe it was about $4,000. I haven't got the final figures yet. So that would bring our total now to about $7,500, but we just got started. We were to launch on the 15th, but the tornado happened. So we had to rescind that date. So the whole point is to assist all these seniors living below the poverty line. We have given it a lot of thought. There will be a subcommittee to approve recipients. That will be based on 2 board members, myself and Victor Brace, and 3 outside organizations, John Tom from Superior Home Care and Jane Walker from Giving Hands. And we did approach Heather about being a 3rd, but I think you have to get permission, Heather?
Yes, and unfortunately, it's not something that I'm going to be able to do. I did let Tom know that last week.
Okay, so we will be looking for someone from a 3rd organization. We felt that 2 from CARP and 3 outside made it squeaky clean and transparent on the money. We will post donations of $250 up, both on our website and on social media. As a thank you. We will post recipients by their first name unless they allow us to use both names. We assume the recipients will come from Berry Families Unite, from Helping Hands, from doctors, nurses, from members who might be aware of somebody in dire need. And there will be a form going up on our website. And you can go to berrycarp.org and click on Seniors Community Fund, please. You can donate through Dropbox. You can do an e-transfer. You can mail a check to 150 Livingstone Street East or drop it off at Superior Home Care. We're looking for either one amount or a monthly. I chose to do a monthly. We will keep this going as long as money comes in. There is no end date. And we are hoping that as soon as this election is over, because it's on everybody's mind right now, that we will start being able to hand out money. We think that with winter coming on, there's going to be such a need, not just for food and rent, but for winter boots, other things, healthcare, transportation. And I am going to ask the city for maybe some free bus passes and things like that. So you will see a push of us going out asking for businesses to give us gift certificates that we're going to approach, for instance, drugstores and grocery stores. And I think a lot of the professionals I'm certainly going to approach the opticians because CARP has really backed them on this September 1st date where they're asking for higher fees from OHIP. I believe they're entitled because they haven't had a real increase for years and years and years. So we want everybody to put it on their social media to get the word out. The more people that know, the more likely we are to have money come in, but also more recipients. Eventually, we hope to have something on CTV because we feel the recipients won't know about this because they can't afford social media. They might have a television though. So if we can get it up on CTV eventually, maybe that will bring more recipients to us. Again, I'm hoping we can make this, we can reach our goal or even surpass it, and that we will keep it going as long as possible. If we can do a good job of this, the other CARP chapters might even take it up too. So please join us, everybody. We need your help. Advertise us, tell all your friends, put it on social media. Just let everybody know that. I know everybody's asking for donations right now, but this is one that, I mean, a lot of seniors are just as vulnerable as children.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Maybe, Glenn, if you could send us the link to the website for those that can't find it. I'm sure they can find it though, but maybe then we could send it around to the
I will.
members. Okay.
It is berrycarp.org, and I will.
Okay.
All
Perfect.
lowercase.
Thank you. Okay. So the last item on our agenda today is before we go back to Anna Marie, you brought up a point about whether we needed to make a recommendation to the city in regards to the housing information that you mentioned something about if there was a recommendation the committee had. Maybe we can look at our future meetings and then come back to that issue. Brandy had sent out an updated list of possible speakers and information that we could have come forward over the next few months to our meetings. And maybe I should backtrack a little bit. We haven't been we missed a block of time that we didn't meet. So we really need to, as a committee, come back to updating ourselves on what's been happening in the various organizations that impact seniors in Barrie, and that would have an effect on decisions that this committee might make. In saying that, we need to develop a plan to review with these organizations their current status and what's happening, and then to move towards looking at the age-friendly plan and our mandate, and then coming up with a communication plan so that we can also make recommendations to council. But in order to get to that point, we again need to update our knowledge of what's been happening out there in the various areas that that affect seniors. So that's sort of why this is set up in this particular manner, but it can be changed according to anything the committee finds that they would like to move around. So because speakers generally take about a half an hour, we can only probably have about 3 speakers at a meeting, and Brandy's going to be gracious enough to help us to try to figure out which speakers we can get at which meetings. So I'd like to make a recommendation that the updates from committee organizations go last, because most of the organizations are people that are on the committee, and we can do a roundtable at a meeting. And that would probably have to go into next year, because if you look at all of the recommended information or speakers that we want to have, we won't be able to get through them all until December. So everybody was provided with a list of meeting dates, and we really only have 4 dates to try to get the number of speakers into each meeting. So I'll leave it open for discussion from the committee to decide if these are the organizations that they want to have come forward, or if there are any that are missing that they would like to see come forward and give us a presentation.
Also, too,
Yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
I would just like to say if any of the members here are part of any of the organizations, if I can basically kind of put your name on this list, and hopefully we can kind of lean on you just in case for contacts outside of yourselves to be able to get some information or bring in presentations to update the committee on these particular organizations and other agencies. Also too, we're looking to get any contacts you may have with respect to any of the items suggested for presentations, and looking to have a discussion around basically the items that are listed, what it is specifically you're looking to have presented. What information would you like to hear? Is there anything specific? That way, if it's me specifically reaching out to the individuals that are going to be presenting, I can provide them with information about what the committee is expecting to hear, what they would like to hear, what information they would like to be presented to them. So I'm more than happy to go through the list one by one with you myself, or Donna, if you would like to do that, we can do that as well. But at this point here, I would definitely like to get as much information as we can. That way I can basically do my diligence for the committee and making sure we get all those presentations and all those contacts and everything all done for the committee, basically when the committee would like these presentations done.
So we'll go down the list then. So the affordable housing one we've just done.
Yep.
The transit and parking strategy, we have, that was on here. We haven't had anybody come forward on that.
So with that one there, Cheryl Swan has reached out to Brent Forsyth in the transit and parking department within the city to see if he is available to speak to the committee. So that is something that has just come my way as of this morning that I had seen myself. So at this point here, we're just waiting to hear back from Brent to see if he can be our person of contact for that.
So maybe we could have a little discussion about what people would like to hear from various things. We are a seniors committee, so our focus is on issues relating to seniors. So for myself, my primary focus would be on what are these organizations and doing to benefit the seniors in Barrie, and what have they done and what will they be doing moving forward to help seniors, because that is our main focus, is seniors. And that would help to narrow their presentation down, because a lot of the organizations would have a broad focus, and to talk about everything the organization is doing would take a large amount of time. But with a focus on seniors is what I would feel that the presentation should contain. So committee members, what do you feel that you would want these organizations to bring forward?
I'm not in the committee. Sorry, it's Lucia. I just wonder if at this point you'd like to consider having a presentation from CNIB. We're just, we haven't had our official opening, but we are now located next to the BMO Bank at Collier and Mulcaster on 90 Collier Unit 5. We have changed our service model essentially, so it's a little different, but still our main clients are seniors. So if you'd like an update on that, I'd be happy to arrange that for you.
Right. Okay, so the timing then, would you want to bring that, like updates from the committee organizations, all of the committee organizations, do you want to do them together or do you want to do them at different times? Do you want to move that one forward to October or to September? Like, Brandy needs some help to try to sort out how many, like we can only have 3 presenters at a meeting. So if we get transit and we do CNIB at the next meeting, then we have one more slot we can put in that meeting, and then the next, she'd have to decide for the next month based on the contacts that she makes, how many she can get into the next.
Donna, I like the idea of doing them together, and I can certainly shorten mine to 10 to 15 minutes for sure, if we wanted to do them together.
Okay, let's keep going down the list then. So Canadian, does anybody else have any comments about the focus of what the organization should be bringing to the table when they're talking to us? Is the seniors focus mainly what everybody agrees is what we want discussion on?
Would you want to know what they're offering during the pandemic, programs that they have offered, they've been successful at offering, what type of clients that they're seeing, community members they're connecting with, what their reopening looks like? Might be all good information.
Okay, that's great. Molly?
I think that the topic of seniors itself is huge because there are more and more of us, certainly in Barrie. There are more and more of us that have been affected by the cost of living recently. Mm-hmm. And for instance, this 30% deciding is affordable absolutely terrifies me because I think it would be so ridiculous for seniors. Mm. So I think any focus that brings in seniors covers a multitude of areas, and I hope we shall hear as many as we can.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And I like Jessica's suggestions because if they're focusing on seniors, then her suggestions about new programs, what happened during COVID and how they are adjusting to that, I think that's another area that would be of interest because COVID is going to be around for a while and we need to know how that's going to impact those services. Gwen?
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have the hospital give us an update on how many procedures and operations and whatever are being canceled because of COVID. Like, what's the situation?
Yeah, I that was one of the ones I wanted to add on, RVH. And also in connection with that is home and community services, because we don't really know what home and community, the new health teams, how they're adjusting their services to their clients based on, I know they go through organizations and some of the organizations would give us information, but the Ontario health teams through home and community services assisting those living in their homes, we really don't have much on how seniors are being impacted by that. So those two were two that I was hoping I might be able to add on to the list at someplace. Okay, so let's go down the list then. Canadian Mental Health Association, Mental Health Services. Is that one everybody agreeable they would like to hear from? Okay. Alzheimer's Society.
And really quickly too, with the Canadian Mental Health, one thing I would need to know is, does the committee have a person of contact, somebody that I can contact to request information if they are able to attend? And does the committee have a general idea of when they would like, if they would like it September, if they would like it October? Keeping in mind that I did hear from the Barrie Public Library regarding the demographics of seniors. There's going to be a presentation on that in September, as well as the Director of Customer Service had also been in contact and wishes to do a presentation as well on their product, their services that they're being provided to seniors, as well as a few other things. So in September, there are already 2 presentations. So for the CNIB, when would you like that presented? Do you have a general idea of when you would like that done? As for the Canadian Mental Health Association, if I can get a contact and when you would like to have that presentation done. And then
I'd like to suggest that since the committee organizations that you have listed here are pretty well the individuals that are on this committee, okay, I would like to take the first meeting in January and have it strictly a committee organization discussion, and then try to get these other external organizations to come sometime between now and the end of the year. So that would give 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings to try to fit in these organizations. And something like the Snow Angels and Georgian
sure.
College could be done at one meeting. Okay, so I mean, I know that Georgian College is pretty flexible from the last time that they came to speak to us. So if you could, when you're talking to them, if you could suggest maybe 2 dates and then confirm based on other groups of when they're available. So
Do we want?
it's kind of hard to say I want to have you in October, because until you talk to them, you don't know whether the person who's coming to speak can come in October, November, or December. We don't
Absolutely.
know.
Absolutely.
that's
But if
hard-
I have a
that's hard
general
to-
idea
Yeah.
of when
So
you
I
want,
would
then I can
say-
at least confirm for sure.
Yeah, I would say that any of the external organizations that we have there, if we could fit them into the meetings between September, October, November, and December, if we could do that, that would give you some leeway, Brandy, as to your scheduling, because you could call them and say, we'd like to have you come in November, and then you say, well, you know, October's already filled, so now I got to fill November and December, so I'll go through the rest of them and see if I can get them in those 2 months. Because it's kind of hard for us to say we want to have them come in October, and I can hear from the rest of the group that we want to have you in October, and you call them and then they can't come until November. I think it'll all depend on when they're available. Go ahead, Jessica.
Is a consideration to having one committee member at each meeting speak about where they're at versus all in January? Because I think a lot will change between now and January, and I think that the committee members should be sharing, especially those that are at the organizations, should be sharing what they are working on and how that might help the Seniors Advisory Committee, as well as, is there a consensus from the committee that the organizations that we're asking to attend are ones that we are interested in having attend, and the purpose of having them attend?
Well, the list was circulated before it was put together. So that list was circulated after our last meeting.
I think that, yes, the list was circulated, but I believe the list was circulated more of this is who is coming versus asking for necessarily feedback of who they might recommend.
No, the list went out saying, do you agree with the list? Do you want changes? Do you want to add, subtract from it? So, I mean, that's what we're doing now. So it's up. You're right. It's up to the committee members to decide if they want these organizations to come and speak or not, and the process. So your suggestion is a good one. So it's up to the committee. So Jessica is suggesting that we have one committee organization per meeting come and speak. How does the committee agree with that? They want to go ahead with it that way?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak whenever you know, the committee would like to hear from me. We have lots to share with Red Cross, and I'm sure that every organization here would have lots to share that would be relevant as well.
Okay, so we can, that's no problem. We can do that then. So if the committee's okay with that, then Brandy can fit in one of the committee organizations that are listed and put them in per week. Pat? Pat, you're on. You need to unmute. Pat, unmute. There.
How many committee organizations are there? 4, I'm thinking?
5.
5? Okay. So maybe if they just did a short, brief update of what they're doing right now, and then if we wanted in January to have a further in-depth of what the new year is going to look like, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. What about the other topics? Now, can individuals on the committee please advise me if the topics that are listed as external organizations are ones that they want to have come forward to speak to us? Molly? Molly, can't hear you. There.
I'm unmuting.
Okay.
I hope in the group you will consider some representation from those of us who represent the community. I think there are 4 of us, And I suspect there's a very good reason why we were elected or accepted on this committee. I would like to suggest that. And before I leave and before we adjourn, I do want to compliment Gwen and Car on their initiative for helping the seniors. I'm delighted to hear that. I wish you every success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agree with Molly.
Agree.
Thank you.
Okay, so Molly, do you want community members to be fitted in at each meeting, or do you want it as a roundtable in the new year, or how would you see that happening?
Well, I don't like to speak for the other community members, but I feel sure there are reasons why we're sitting here month after month, and I think it would be nice to have an opportunity to voice some of those things.
Okay.
I don't know if the others agree, but those are my thoughts.
We used to do a quick roundtable at the end of every meeting, and that was nice to just bring everyone up to speed. If we're voting, my vote would be to have everyone do sort of a condensed version all on the same day. That way we know what we've got on our committee as well.
Okay. So then what you're thinking is that we have a roundtable like at every meeting, someone that is part of one of our committee organization, just give a 5-minute brief on what's been happening in their area?
Yeah, we used to do that. It could even just be a 1 minute, and oftentimes it's a pass, there's nothing new.
Okay, and that's a great idea, because then if they know they're expected to speak every meeting, then they would bring information with them and be prepared.
Right.
Okay. All right. So then for an update from each organization, we would still add to every meeting one of the organizations so that they could give us an expanded discussion on their area and what's been happening.
I'll add that as an agenda item for at the end of the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. So as far when I go back to the external organizations again, because we still haven't really gone through them, and is there any objection or changes to the list of suggested external organizations?
Heather here.
Yeah.
I just have a question with one of the topics was downtown the downtown BIA. Just wondering what it was that we were looking for them to present on.
That was added on afterwards at a discussion I had with Brandy and Cheryl, and the idea there, I think, was that are they doing anything that relates to seniors, or how are they looking at accommodating seniors during the COVID, during the changes that are taking place right now, and things like accessibility to their shops or discounts, or what are they doing for the seniors in their community. I think that was the idea. And also just to update us a little bit on what's happening with the downtown business as far as availability of shopping for seniors. Just an update. Gwen?
I'm wondering if we couldn't have somebody like Andrea Kanjan come and give us an update on long-term care homes in our area and what's happening. Like, how are they improving?
One of the MPPs, you're looking at an MPP to update you. Wouldn't you?
I know that she was very involved in Roberta Place. That's why I mentioned her name.
Yeah. Simcoe County oversees the long-term care. I actually had a handout to give you at this meeting, but we didn't send it out with all of the waiting list for long-term care. Simcoe County basically would probably be able to give us more information on long-term care. Anne-Marie?
Just a nuance there. So Simcoe County looks after 4 long-term care homes, but I believe we're still at 28 in the region. So there's 10 in Barrie or so. The majority of those would actually still be through home and community care. So
they control the waiting list, but they don't control the funding For the.
So it's government funded, right?
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
were looking at long-term care in general, it was Marilee Fullerton, and then that portfolio changed. So it depends on if you want feedback from the actual minister responsible for long-term care, or if you want information through home and community care, home services tied to the process, the wait list, and what we're seeing around access and referral out of region. So I think it depends on what you're looking for around. Is it more political, tied to what's happening around care and other things that have been asked around ratio of workers to number of residents, or is it around what we're seeing for very area specific residents looking for access?
Well, with home and community care, part of the reason I wanted them to come is because there is additional funding that has been allocated for both long-term care, and there are homes in Barrie that have received additional funding as part of the new stream of money. Home and community care would be able to report on that for us, as well as the additional funding that's been put into at-home services. So they would be able to update us on that. And then Simcoe County would be able to update us on what's happening with the county and the allocation of beds in the area. I think we need to look at that first before if we look at what's happening through those two areas, then we can look at if we need to go further and have someone from one of the MPPs come. But if you go directly to the organizations that are actually looking after it, you're probably going to get more in-depth information in regards to what's happening with long-term care and what actual funding and what the needs are right now. So if we could add on the home and community care and the hospital, because the hospital has 34, 35 beds, I think it's alternate level of care, we could get more information that way. But Gwen, back to you if you want an MPP to come.
Well, one thing that's bothered me, I know Primacare Living wanted to build out on the borderline of Springwater and Barrie, a 300 bed plus a hub for Georgian College to train and assisted living and whatever on 10 acres out there. And it hasn't happened. And I'd like to know why, because it's the new form of transformative care, the way we want to be looked after in an old age home or long-term care. And I could never get an answer on why that didn't happen, because I know there are waiting lists.
Well, that would be Simcoe County. So you'd have to, that's why when Simcoe County comes, you could ask that question.
Yeah.
And then if you're not getting the answer for Simcoe County, then as a committee, we can discuss if we want to get into the political issue, because that's something that maybe this not the place for this committee to get into politics on why things are happening and why they aren't. But I think more of with Simcoe County, is it a funding issue? Is it a unit issue? What is the issue? And they might be able to answer that question for you. And that might be a good place to start. So let's try with Simcoe County and let's see if we can get somebody from home and community care. And then again, it doesn't mean we have to end having presentations. It means that we start there getting information and collecting it. And then what are we not getting answers for that we need to have more presenters? I think that's the way I would move forward. Any of the other presenters here that the committee has any concerns about?
I've got a comment, and I'm not sure if it'll be helpful or not, but perhaps a consideration might be, do we cascade out the net to all these organizations? Because I'm not sure if all of them will have information that's deserving of a presentation or will be the most meaningful about where you want to go versus just, it would be nice to know current status. So maybe a next step might be committing a meeting to a roundtable where we can have the conversation around members and then identify what we want to dig deeper into and make sure we carve out that time. But some of these individuals might just be nice to know information. And so I think taking the time to actually identify what questions do we have so we know who the targeted audience is, could also streamline it logistically. So we know we're getting the right person to come to the committee, but then you're also really clear about what's the information that you want versus a generic request. I'm not sure if we've done that, but I guess I would say maybe taking the time to kind of have members identify what exactly do you want to be knowing about this topic, because it will be one of the first questions I would imagine any organization would ask about what am I presenting on, and making sure they're meeting the needs of this committee, but also that there's no surprises, right? So we can also invite people, but if we can identify our questions in advance, it might help them to seek out the information that we're looking for rather than saying, we'll get back to you. So just a process consideration, because I know we're spending quite a bit of time generating interest and opportunity around this, but perhaps if we know what we're asking for, we can be clear about if it's different individuals at different levels.
Well, I understand, but I need the committee to come forward with that information. We're having a lot of discussion, but I don't have committee members who are coming forward with actual questions or actual information that they want asked. So I can't, as a chair, move forward unless I have committee members supporting me with the questions that they want when I ask the question and I don't get any answers. So I started off by saying that our primary focus is seniors, and that we would like to know what these services are doing to benefit the seniors in Barrie. And during if we take one of Anne Marie's questions or information that she had sent me, is what during the COVID had to change in order to meet the needs of seniors, and where are you going from here in order to continue to meet the needs of seniors? Because if the focus is too wide, she's absolutely right. We're going to have a conversation that's an hour long. We don't have an hour for presenters. We have a maximum of 20 minutes and 10 minutes for questions. So, and you're absolutely right, Anne Marie, like Snow Angels wouldn't take very long to let us know what's happening in their area. And Georgian College always comes very well prepared, and their presentation is usually 10 or 15 minutes and they're done. And they usually bring a thorough presentation in that time frame. So if the committee members want to get their knowledge base up to date so that we can move forward with our mandate and our communications plan for next year, then I really need your help to come up with the direction and the questions that you guys want to ask. So Gwen and then Molly.
So I'm in constant touch with Martin Rochon from Georgian College and Home Share. And it was he and Lauren Wild from the city that came and did a presentation to CARPA. Well, it's 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. But I think you could combine Home Share and Fall and Snow Angels, because really they're both initiated through the city. It could be one presentation. And I'm not sure there's anything happening there right now because of COVID.
And they had changed their focus too. I remember I got some emails from them. They changed doing a volunteer program as the Home Share. So maybe they could update us a little bit on that for seniors. Yeah. They were doing some kind of a volunteer help program for seniors as opposed to just doing the in-home individuals living in their homes. So that's a great point. And so do you want the focus again? Do you agree? I'll get to you, Molly, that the focus should be what's happening around seniors.
Yes.
Okay, so Molly?
I think Anne Marie's idea is excellent. I certainly support it. It makes far more sense for us to focus on what we want from these presenters. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be done by round table here at a meeting.
Well, that's what this meeting is about right now. So what would you want to focus on from the presenters, Molly? What questions would you want to be asking?
I think it always focuses on what services they provide for seniors. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the David Busby Centre is on our list, but I'm sure there are many homeless people that they support, and they would have very extra needs than the younger people, I'm quite sure. I don't care what organization is that speaking, we would like to know, I think, what they are doing for seniors.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Pat?
I think also we should ask how has the services changed with regards to COVID? And if they're looking at doing anything different come 2021. And if I could trouble you to resend me the list, because I apologize, but I've been working the last few months and I probably wasn't as diligent in reading my emails from you as I should have been.
Okay. So I think we've established the focus. Now, Brandy, let us help you out, because you're the one that's going to be asking the question when you go out and do the request. So the first is a focus on seniors. What are they doing for seniors? What's happened during the COVID? What's changed their programming? How is their programming different from in 2021 versus 2020 or previous? And where do they see them going in providing services to seniors? And I think that is probably enough for a discussion from any one of these groups. So can I ask if anybody has a contact for Brandy in any of these areas? Could they email it to her, please? And let her know who they think would be a good contact for her to ask the questions to come and do a presentation. Molly, you're next. Go ahead.
Perhaps one of the questions we should be asking is, do they provide services to seniors? And if not, why not?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Lucia, and I don't know who else. Lucia, did you have anything that you?
I do have one question, and I think it's Heather has her hand raised too. Donna, just not on the list is the food bank, and I'm very interested to know how many of our Barrie seniors are using the food bank. Is there, even if they can't come and present, if we could get some information on that? I guess it ties in with Gwen's new initiative with CARP. Like, what are some of the needs out there being met by seniors that we're maybe not even aware of?
Okay, so we can add the food bank on. I can't see everybody. Is there somebody else I missed? You said Heather?
Yeah, I've got my little hand up there.
I can't see it because I'm not the.
Well, it's a little yellow hand that's up when
I don't see it on my screen. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. In any case, I just wanted to kind of back up that yes, I love the questions that we're asking. I think that that's perfect, and maybe even frame it as, have you learned anything from the pandemic that you will continue to implement moving forward? Because I think that a lot of organizations have. They learned a lot of lessons here that are going to carry on. So that may be something to kind of add to wrap it all up.
Great. Okay, so do we sort of have our plan put together? And then what we can do at the next meeting is, before the next meeting, if Brandy could help by taking this form and then sort of updating us with who she's got booked in where. And Brandy, if you need some help, send a help out to us and we'll see if we can help you out, okay? To find contacts. And
Absolutely.
then we can go from there. Any other comments in regards to the speakers? Any comments in regard to the process of having the speakers, which would lead up to our review of the age-friendly plan and our mandate? And then, because I see that happening sometime in February, and then in March, we would develop our communication plan going forward and our recommendations to council if we have any. And the whole idea behind the communication plan would be to chart our course for next year as a committee to see what we need to do in order to establish what we want to do for the seniors in Barrie. And I know a lot of you have felt that we haven't really moved forward since our initial meeting, but I think in lieu of the fact that COVID has taken away a big chunk of our time, that's been difficult. But I think if we can come up with a great communication plan that we can get out there with our communication tools and speak to people, I think we would probably be able to get more feedback in a more positive way and let people know that we exist as a committee. And I think that's important awareness in Barrie. And by then, hopefully COVID will be at the stage where we can get out into the public. Any
I
other
just have one
questions?
quick question.
Sure.
On our previous list, you have technology for seniors. I'm assuming that's still going to be an interested topic that the committee is still wishing to hear about from someone.
I was thinking about your question when you asked that, and I thought maybe, and thank you for bringing it up, maybe each of the presenters that come, maybe they could speak to the technology that they have implemented, because COVID has prevented the person-to-person meeting, and how they're using that technology to reach people. My concern with technology is we're going in at a fast pace to move to put everybody into technology in different areas. And there are a lot of seniors that will fall through the crack because of it.
Definitely.
And we just don't want that to happen. And so maybe if each organization could tell us how they're reaching the seniors using technology. And I know the library has a big one, so maybe we could start there. And then if we don't get our questions answered, when we move forward, we can add that on and figure out how we can, and that might be something that we would end up making a recommendation to council about, because that's technology for seniors in the community is critical. And how does Barrie going to help with developing technological plans for those that don't have technology, so that they can feed into services and feed into finding out about housing and all the other options that they need in order to, get the services that will help them as they age. So.
Okay, and my question too had something to do with assisted devices, say hearing devices. There is a company on Cedar Point Drive in Barrie that does basically kind of rent out their equipment for hearing. We've used it in POA for folks that have had hearing issues. They have the headphones, they have other earpieces, they have microphones that are able to sit out. So my question is it a specific technology, or is it just across the board?
It's any technology that affects a senior's ability to live their life in a quality of life, to have quality of life, because you're right, those things impact that. Now, that might be something when you have home and community care come, that we could ask the questions there, because assistive devices goes through, physical devices as part of home and community care. So we could ask that question there. Hearing is a big one, and I didn't know if when we have the presentation from CNIB, that's you, Lucia, right?
Yes, Donna, sorry, I had my little hand up here, my orange hand.
Okay.
I mean, we also have Ross from the Canadian Hearing Society, which is always good to hear from as well. But I just wanted to remind everyone, I think we may have had a presentation years ago, Cyber Seniors, which is headed up by the health unit, where they partner youth or adults with seniors and teach them technology. We haven't had an update from them in a while.
Yeah, they still do that, and it's on their program. So when they come next week, that would be a great question to ask them.
Yeah, but they may not have the right person coming, but just if we let them know. I think it's Sarah Orshaw is still doing that, is she? Anyone know?
Well, what they do is they put it on their calendar, and as part of their program, anybody who wants an hour of free assistance with technology can book it through the library. So she can talk to us about that. And then if we need more information on it, or maybe Brandy, you could ask the person coming if they could also talk a little bit.
Sorry, Donna, are you saying that the library has partnered with the health unit that was overseeing the program?
I don't know if it's the health unit, but they have individuals that you can book free time to learn
Yeah, no,
about.
this is different. This is cyber seniors and the health unit headed that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't have the health unit on here. Do we need to add the health unit?
That might be a great place to get some additional information about seniors and everything that the health unit is doing with them.
Okay. That's a good point then. We'll put down the health unit. I don't know how busy they'll be because of COVID, but maybe they could spare a few minutes for us.
Well, I think it's just being, and I'm wondering about process. So, if they don't have time, because I know they're pretty stretched, are we really talking about framing an invitation out with the set questions and seeing what we get back? Some of it might be pointing us to resource links. Some of it might be a quick kind of information page. Some of it might be, yes, we're interested in a presentation. And listening to the dialogue, if we could streamline the process, if that's of interest, that might set us up for an easier flow of who's coming to the table about what information and what's new, or how do we support gathering that information and at least bring it back in a way that creates a great update around shared learnings. So I love Heather's approach to some of the questions. So if it also takes less time, the easiest way to send an invitation would be by email and just hit the CEO or executive director. It'll triage then to a communications department or the person most responsible. And then we don't have to worry about hitting individuals at a certain level of an organization where it doesn't actually track in the most expedient way. Because I heard, a top 5 questions being, we'd love to know as a seniors advisory committee, the key programs and services that you have that focus on supporting seniors. What have been your key learnings through COVID? Are you making any changes to your business approach or the way in which you provide programs and services through COVID? What were the pressures that you're experiencing, that seniors are experiencing, that you're connected to? What are the opportunities that you see for how you can support seniors? And basically, how have you used technology or connected with seniors differently through COVID? And would you be interested and available to present, to give a 15-minute presentation to the Seniors Advisory Committee? But it might help us to kind of triage that information and then get a broader scope.
Okay. So part of the process of what happens is Brandy is our contact with the city. So Brandy is the one that goes out and reaches out to individuals. So I don't want to step on toes by overstepping Brandy because that's her area of responsibility. So in order to accommodate that, I think if we have, like we mentioned earlier, if we have someone that Brandy can contact, then we send that to Brandy and she would have this little cheat sheet that she would send out to them with the information. Is that the way we see the process? Then Brandy, you would have a little information sheet of this is what our committee is looking for, and then you would have the contact. So if you don't have a contact for an area, I'd be more than willing to help, like Anne-Marie has said, to sort out somebody. I've got 2 people from the hospital and home and community care that I can send you. So I think we start there, and then Brandy, if you need help because you have some of these organizations that you don't have a contact with, that we let us know and we'll step in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I really do like the idea of having, because it seems, from my understanding anyways, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that the general consensus is, like Councillor Kungle said, there's 5 general questions that seem to be across the board for all these organizations. So if it's going to be the same questions, and by all means, I really do enjoy the idea of having something that can be provided to them at the time. So yeah, no.
Yeah, I think it's the same 5 questions. I think the committee agreed on that. So I think Anne-Marie's absolutely correct on that end of things.
Absolutely.
So Brandy, do you have any questions for us that you need clarification on before you move forward with anything?
At this point, I'm currently on information overload, so I definitely like to go through my notes and definitely go through the meeting
On a Zoom
again.
meeting through in about 15 minutes.
And then definitely I could most likely send out some emails with questions asking if anybody has any specific contacts, confirming with everybody dates and all that stuff. So we'll definitely try and organize this.
Well, I think September is almost full because we have the library and we have
the library.
Yeah, and did you say transit?
I'm going to find out if transit is 100% available for September. Still waiting to hear back from them. It's my understanding that the email went out on Friday. I myself was not here on Friday.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm still waiting to hear back about that.
Right.
And I will definitely let the committee know. So if it turns out that September has 3 presentations, then we'll move on to October. And as previously indicated, I'll definitely put that roundtable item on the next agenda going forward, all the agendas. And we could definitely have those committee organization updates.
Great.
But I will definitely send out an email with intentions for the upcoming meetings and stuff like that. So if the committee has anything that they would like to add, delete, respond to, there'll be that option there.
Okay. By all means, if we can help you in any way, because we've thrown a lot at you and I'm sure it's going to take you a little bit of time to sort through it. So
that's okay. I like the challenge.
Well, we appreciate that. Okay. Any other comments before we close, Molly?
Can I give a feedback from a retired senior? I'm getting fed up with virtual meetings.
Unfortunately, I don't see these ending anytime in the near future.
I'm afraid not.
Okay. Gwen? Can't hear you. You're on mute, Gwen.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Just for my 1 minute, we're putting together 2 political forums, September 7th and September 8th, back to back at Traditions. September 7th will be Barrie Innisfil. September 8th will be Barrie Springwater or Madonna, and then we'll be at 7 o'clock at night. Thank you.
Okay. All righty, great. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. This has been quite the intense meeting and excellent meeting. I really enjoyed all the presentations and the discussion and appreciate your input. So I'm hoping that by going through what we're doing right now, the committee will have a sense that we are actually moving forward and accomplishing things that are positive for seniors in the community. So stay cool, everybody, and we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.